The late 70s and early 80s were wild years for heavy metal. Bands were fighting to be louder, darker, and more rebellious than ever. Behind the screaming guitars and thunderous drums, many musicians were dealing with their own demons. Drugs weren't just around, they were everywhere. Heroin, in particular, wasn't just another vice. It was a trapdoor to destruction. Musicians described it as meeting the devil himself, and for many, it ended careers or lives. But somehow, in the middle of all that chaos, one band managed to keep going. Even when their members were falling apart, even when new faces had to step in, the music didn't stop. What came out of this storm wasn't a disaster, but a classic that fans still celebrate decades later. This story isn't just about riffs and concerts, it's about survival, temptation, and the brutal cost of creating something unforgettable. Heroin wasn't glamorous. Musicians who touched it often described it as a shadow that followed them everywhere. One said, "If you want to see the devil, heroin is it." For this metal band, addiction began creeping in just as their popularity exploded. The more successful they became, the more the poison spread. Tours turned into nightmares. Studios filled with tension. Members disappeared for days, coming back pale and broken. Some fans could already see the change in the performances. The energy dipped, the mistakes piled up. Bandmates fought not only with each other, but with their own minds. Yet despite the madness, the riffs kept coming. The band wasn't ready to stop. If anything, the struggle seemed to fuel their fire, making them write songs that sounded raw, angry, and brutally honest. But the question lingered, could they survive long enough to finish what they started? Recording sessions became battles. Engineers and producers often didn't know whether a band member would show up sober, late, or at all. Heroin twisted moods and wrecked concentration. One take might be flawless, the next, a total disaster. The studio air smelled of sweat, smoke, and desperation. Yet, in those rare moments when everyone locked in, the music was magic. Guitars screamed with new fury, drums pounded like war, and the lyrics, often written in the haze of addiction, cut straight to the bone. The band wasn't just making an album. They were bleeding onto the record. Every track carried the weight of their struggles, and as much as heroin tried to drag them under, the music refused to drown. Against all odds, the sessions moved forward. It was as if the music itself was bigger than their pain, pulling them back from the edge each time. But addiction has a cost, and the band couldn't escape it forever. One of their most important members, someone who had helped shape their sound, was slipping too far. His health collapsed, his spirit cracked. Eventually, he had to leave. It wasn't a decision anyone wanted, but it became clear. If he stayed, he wouldn't survive. Fans were shocked. The band felt broken. Losing a brother wasn't just about music. It was about losing part of their identity. Could they continue without him? Would anyone accept a new lineup? At first, it felt like the end, but the other members weren't ready to quit. They carried the weight of their fallen brother with them, determined to keep the fire alive. His absence became fuel. The next songs carried a darker, heavier tone, as if mourning and rebellion were stitched into every note. Replacing a fallen member is never easy. Fans are suspicious, critics are harsh, and even the band itself struggles to accept the change. But when the new blood arrived, something clicked. He brought energy the group desperately needed. He wasn't there to erase the past, he was there to push them into the future. With fresh riffs, tighter rhythms, and a hunger to prove himself, the newcomer added sparks to a fire that was almost out. At first, the chemistry was rocky. Trust doesn't happen overnight. But on stage and in the studio, the bond grew. The old wounds were still there, but the music began to heal them. For the first time in a long time, the band felt alive. Fans started to notice too. This wasn't just survival anymore. It was rebirth. When the new lineup hit the spotlight, critics circled like vultures. Headlines asked if the band was finished. Radio stations doubted they could deliver anything worth hearing. Fans debated endlessly. Was this really the same band without their missing brother? The pressure was suffocating, but instead of folding, the band answered with music. Every track on their upcoming album was aimed like a weapon at the doubters. They didn't just want to prove they could still play, they wanted to prove they could dominate. And slowly, the tide began to turn. Singles leaked. Fans started to buzz. The critics who once laughed began whispering, maybe this band wasn't done after all. Finally, the record was finished. Everyone knew what it had cost: addiction, pain, lineup changes, but holding the vinyl in their hands felt like victory. It wasn't just another album, it was a statement. The riffs were heavier than before, the lyrics darker, the performances sharper. This wasn't a band running out of gas, it was a band reborn in fire. When it hit the shelves, fans rushed to grab it. Some expected a mess. Instead, they found one of the strongest metal albums of the decade. Against all odds, the classic was born. It didn't just survive the chaos, it thrived in it. With a new album came a new tour. But the danger wasn't over. Addiction still haunted them. Some nights were disasters, missed notes, collapsed bodies, fans left disappointed. Other nights, though, were legendary. When the band locked in, the energy shook entire arenas. The music sounded like war, and the fans loved it. Each show felt like a gamble. Would the band crumble, or would they rise? Somehow, more often than not, they rose. The tour became a symbol of survival. Fans who had doubted before now cheered louder than ever. The band wasn't just alive, they were unstoppable. Looking back, it's hard to believe this album ever happened. Addiction should have destroyed it, losing a key member should have ended it, critics should have buried it. But instead, the opposite happened. This record became one of the band's most important releases. It proved they weren't just another metal act, they were legends. Every riff carried scars, every lyric carried blood, and that's exactly why fans connected so deeply. The devil of heroin had tried to claim them, but instead, their suffering created something immortal. Years later, the story of this album still stands as a warning. Heroin destroyed lives, broke friendships, and nearly silenced one of metal's greatest voices. Yet somehow, through all the madness, the music survived. The line still echoes, "If you want to see the devil, heroin is it." The band had seen the devil face to face, and instead of bowing, they turned his darkness into art. The classic they made wasn't just a record. It was proof that even in the grip of addiction, music could rise above. Fans still play it, still feel its fire, still hear the sound of survival. It will never be just another album. It will always be the album that wouldn't die.